tell us a little bit about yourself?
And taught here in Volusia County for 15 years and retired in 2019. So I still stay active in sports with the kids. I'm a football coach at Seabreeze High School, and just wanted to stay involved in the community somehow. I said it's ironic that I'm sitting in this chair because 2 years ago I ran against Jake for the seat. So I finally got to the chair. So I'm going to leave a note for Jake under the seat here when I'm done. So, but I appreciate being on the board. Thank you very much.
And we're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Could we please have a roll call?
Reggie Santilli,
Here.
Pat Drago, Gerald Fieser,
Here.
John Macaluso,
Here.
Pat Northey, Jay Pendergast,
Here.
Doug Pettit. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, public participation. Connie Colby, would you like to come up and speak, please?
Good morning. My name is Connie Colby. I live in Ormond Beach. Troy is my representative. I have some questions about the ECHO approval of the funds for the 44 properties that are being combined with the same kind of funds from Volusia Forever for that purchase of that property and its use. I'd like to get some information straight from the horse's mouth because there's a lot of stuff out on Facebook and stuff that is not making a lot of sense. First of all, there's a report that was provided from Volusia Forever for ranking of that property, and it's attached to the agenda. There's not a similar kind of report from ECHO, and I don't know if you provided one, made one. It would be helpful to know if there is such a report and if we could have it put online or wherever. But unfortunately, the meeting is on Tuesday next week for voting on this. I understand that ECHO is involved and they approve things like outdoor recreation. And I wanted to know if you have a definition for what kind of outdoor recreation is approved. Does that include just passive recreation or things that are dangerous, controversial, would interfere with use of that property as well? Motocross would have motorcycles running around the property or on track, whichever it's not decided, I don't think. Or if it is, they're not telling us what they're going to do. Some places say it's passive, but skydiving, some of those things are dangerous. Insurance would be a big deal. Also, I think there was a place where $3.5 million was approved for ECHO funds, but I wanted to know if you were advised that this was going to have anything to do with the motocross facility at all, because it doesn't look like, it looks like they're combining both the motocross with the purchase of the properties, and actually it doesn't look like there's any money provided for motocross, it's just the properties that are being purchased.
Would you like me to clarify this a little bit?
Good morning,
You're
Sabrina
allowed to.
Slack, Assistant County Attorney. Just wanted to let everyone know that this board's also governed by the same rules as the county council, which their rules of decorum, they do not respond directly to public comments. What we do is we've already directed her to Mr. Marsh. If there's any follow-up that she requires or needs, she can go to staff. You can also use your comment period to make any comments that you would like to do on the record, but public participation is limited to a passive receipt of her information. And we've talked to, I'm sorry, ma'am, I forgot your name. We spoke with her already, so we are, the staff is ready to provide her with some information, and whatever the board would like to do can be done on the agenda under your comments. But so that's how the public participation follows the same rules as the council.
Okay, thank you.
And there are some negative comments that have been made online regarding approval of other projects through ECHO, and I would just like to make sure that this is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Okay, has everyone had the opportunity to read the minutes from February 13th? And if anyone has any additions or corrections?
I move we accept the minutes,
Second.
February 13th.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Okay. New business.
Oh, there we go. Fun. Good morning, Sabrina Slack, Assistant County Attorney. We're going to do the annual Sunshine Law and Public Records Law training for you this morning. This is about a 3.5-hour presentation, so I know, I'm not kidding. Everyone thinks it's funny. All right, so here we go. Public Sunshine Law is derived from the Florida Constitution. The important things are that all meetings of any body, including a body such as this, all your official acts are to be taken where public business of the body's transacted or discussed is open and noticed to the public with respect, except for certain exempted meetings. And the thing that is most important is discussed, because that's the one that'll get you there. So there are 3 basic requirements. The meeting has to be public, has to be reasonable notice, and minutes of the meeting have to be taken. The good news is your staff takes care of number 2 and 3. You just really have to be aware of number 1, which all your meetings have to be in the public. What is a meeting? A meeting's any gathering, formal or casual, of 2 or more members of the same board where they discuss some matter on which foreseeable action will be taken by the board or commission. Gathering can include meetings of the board or commission members via telephone or electronic means. So why? Why is this important? Because every thought that you put into a decision you make is relevant and important to the public, and the public has a right to know how you reached your decision, not just what your decision is going to be. So what kind of discussions are covered? We are covering verbal discussions, written discussions, any kind of communication, hand signs, whatever you have. So you're looking at emails, telephone conversations, internet discussions, social media, and text messages. These are the big ones these days. So whereas people used to get together and have dinner and talk about things, now we're having problems with social media and text messages. So internet and social media posts. The Attorney General has had an opinion on this since 2008, where members of a board post things on websites, internet, social media, blogs, those types of things. It can trigger a Sunshine Law violation. And when the Sunshine Law violation is triggered is when you enter into a 2-way discussion of 1 or more board members. So if you think of it as a 1-way communication, so I have a 1-way communication. I have a town hall where I talk to my constituents. I have my own Facebook page, Instagram, social media. I don't do social media, so you guys, I'm making them up. Whichever ones you do. If you're doing 1-way communications, you're putting out there what you are feeling or what you want to tell your constituents or gathering information from your constituents, that is not a violation of the Sunshine Law. However, if you engage in another board member's conversation or another board member engages your conversation or there is some sort of back and forth about your positions on social media, that is a violation of the Sunshine Law. So 1-way communications, you're okay. If you start responding to each other in the same feed, you're going to get in trouble with Sunshine Law. What other types of discussions? So verbal discussions. Inaudible discussions that you have up on the dais can be a Sunshine Law violation if you're talking about matters that are before the board. So if you lean over and, you tell your fellow person how boring I am, that's technically a sunshine law violation because it's before the board. But the other ones are the recess and the adjournment, when you're talking with each other about what just happened. You can't talk about matters for the board. Talk about football, talk about weather, talk about whatever you want, that's fine. The one thing you do have to keep in mind when you're sitting up there is everyone assumes you're talking about public business when you're sitting up there. So if you have any side conversations, they have the appearance of impropriety. So even if you're just talking about, something else while business is being conducted, it looks as if there's an issue. So I always encourage people to avoid that. And, if we're in a controversial matter and you lean over and you talk to each other, someone on this side, well, me, because I'm the lawyer, I might say, hey, would you like to share that with everyone else and put it on the record? So don't have side conversations that might be embarrassing. The liaison rule, what I like to call the telephone game. You are all entitled to call all of our staff members and ask any questions you may have about what comes before the board and have one-on-one conversations with us. You can call me, you can call Daniel, you can call Nick, call Brad, all of us individually. The one thing you cannot do is call us and ask what somebody else on the board thinks, what somebody else on the board may do, or ask us to poll the board as to which way something's going. We can't be a conduit for you to communicate with each other outside of the sunshine. Exceptions. So these are, I just go over them because it's kind of a matter of interest. It's not something that's really going to come before you typically. It's attorney-client meetings, internal collective bargaining, fact-finding committees that are solely designed for the purpose of gathering facts, which you guys are like, wait, we gather facts on Echo Board. You make decisions. Because you rank and recommend, you are not solely fact-finding. You actually do have some decisional authority to recommend things. Portions of the meeting that reveal a security system, that Echo doesn't cover security systems, or a closed bid solicitation process. Those are the exceptions. Notice. So these I'm going to start going through pretty quickly because this is what staff does for you. So we're not going to dwell upon it. We have to give reasonable notice. Reasonable notice has been determined by the Florida Attorney General to mean I give people a notice of the time, place, and subject matter, and I also prominently display it. So we put it on the internet and we also post it. The Florida General recommends that we do this at least 7 days in advance of a meeting. We do it probably 2 weeks before, if not a year before, because we advertise our meeting schedule annually. If you have a special meeting or an emergency meeting, 24 hours to 72 hours. And you can also do notices by press releases, not that the press publishes anything anymore, email, faxes to spread it. Minutes of the meeting. We take the minutes of the meeting. The one thing that people should keep in mind, our minutes are not a verbatim transcript. These are recorded also, but minutes are only intended to cover what occurred at the meeting, which could be as bare bones as what was on the agenda, what motion was made, who voted, and what was carried. As far as what was actually discussed and comments were made, those are not necessary for minutes, but you'll often see them in there. Right to public participation. Members of the public have a reasonable opportunity to be heard. As I explained earlier, we have rules of decorum which govern how we accept or respond to public participation. You can also, just so you know, if there are a lot of members of the public here, we don't have standing limitations on how long someone can present to our board, but you can invoke or make a motion at the beginning to say if there was 100 people here, everyone could speak for a minute. And if you have questions, you can interrupt me. I don't mind. Oh, you just wave. That's good seeing you. So you can invoke those, but you have to give everybody a reasonable opportunity to be heard. They have a right to speak once it's on the agenda for public participation. There are a few boards that don't allow public participation. That would be when they're doing a quasi-judicial function, such as code enforcement. People don't have a right to just come in and speak on any matters related to that. But for matters before you, you typically do have that ability to listen to people. Penalties and sanctions. Sunshine law, there are penalties and sanctions. If it's an unintentional violation, these are maximum penalties. So if there is an unintentional violation, basically you did it for the first time and it's reasonable for you to not have listened to me this morning. It's up to a $500 fine. Knowing violations are typically, if you've been sanctioned before or warned before, it can be a second-degree misdemeanor. Second-degree misdemeanors are punishable by up to a $500 fine, up to 60 days in jail, or up to 6 months on probation, or a combination thereof. You may also be suspended or removed from your office. And the worst sanction of all, attorney's fees and court costs. If a action is actually filed to determine whether or not a sunshine law violation occurred and the opposing party prevails, they can get attorney's fees and court costs. And I will tell you from my experience in private practice, attorneys aren't cheap. So, constitutional right, this is public records law. Everyone, any questions on sunshine law? That was the meetings.
Sabrina, I asked this at the Forever meeting, and I'll ask it again for echoes. Will you defend us if there's a court case?
We do defend you if it's a board action. However, if it is an intentional act that you've done outside of your scope and duties as a board member, there will be a decision made whether or not it would be appropriate for us to represent you because you've gone, outside of your scope and done something individually. So, but for things that are done within your scope as a board member, we do represent you.
Sabrina.
Yes, sir.
I have two questions, actually. The first is public participation. Is it the same 3 minutes here it would be for like the county council?
So the 3 minutes, the county council actually, in addition to their decorum rules, made that as a motion and a decision as a board before their body.
Okay.
So it doesn't apply to you today unless you make that motion and then approve it. And you could make the motion and approve it, and it could be your standing. Everybody who arrives for public participation has 3 minutes, or you can base it on the room. You can look at the room on a day and say, hey, we have a lot of people, so let's limit it today.
Is there a standing procedure for that at all?
No, we don't have one on
All
this
right,
board.
second question I have for you. If a member of the board is asked by a community organization to come speak about ECHO, is that a violation of sunshine law, and is it permitted?
It is permitted if you do it. That is a one-way communication to constituents. So if you yourself go and speak, that's fine. But if Mr. Pendergrass shows up and the two of you start speaking about ECHO and start talking about your experiences and how you deal with ECHO, that has to be a noticed meeting with minutes taken. There's actually two of you engaging on the topic of ECHO.
Okay.
So one person's fine, more than one, and then you have a meeting.
Okay.
It's like a conspiracy. You have to have two people. So, all right.
Sabrina,
Yes.
over here, Brad. One question I think that we often get during, yes, it's me, during this is our board members able to talk to the council member that appointed them about ECHO business?
So they can have one-way communications. That is fine. I mean, they are on two separate boards. So just two people talking when they're on two separate boards is okay. But the issue then becomes if you're on the same board, you can't. So separate boards are fine. Yeah. So, all right. The exciting public records law. So just generally, I'm going to kind of go through public records law a little bit quickly. So I will give you the general overview of public records law. Public records law essentially is that the public has the right to access to every document that a government body has. It's open to the public records unless there's a specific exemption or exception or confidentiality to that record. So if a person generates a document or an email or anything as part of their duties, and that is then shared with someone else so that there is something that we've used to make a decision or something we've used to do our job as a public, it's a public record. So keeping that in mind, anything you generate individually. So if you're sitting up there and you do your grocery list while you're not listening to me doing this, that's not a public record. Even though it's a document you generated while you were on the board, it's not something you were doing as part of your job, and it's not something you're going to share with any other members or with us. If in the process of scoring, we do those score sheets and you share them with us, you've created a public record. So those public records then have to be kept by the county on a certain retention schedule, and they have to be shared with persons. So the thing that's with public records is once you've created, say, a score sheet, it's a public record. If you don't give it to us, the staff members, you will be the custodian of that public record, and you will have the responsibility of retaining it under the retention schedule and sharing it with people when they ask. So the best thing to do as a board member is always remember, give your public records to your staff so that we become the custodians of them. And that way you won't have to worry about all these issues we're going to go through. So every person has a right to inspect, copy public records received in connection with official business of any public body unless it's exempted. So it's the policy of the state and the county municipal records are open for public inspection or copying. What that means is people can either ask us for a copy or they can ask to come in and inspect the record in its business record, how it exists as the original record. So we're talking about documents, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, basically anything that has been taken from the verbal world and placed into some sort of record. So, all right. The location is irrelevant. That's important. So once a public record's made, the location's irrelevant. So for instance, if you, it's easy. Let me do me, because it's me. If I make a public record and I have a public record and I have made it on my personal laptop at home, and I keep it on my personal laptop at home, and that's where it stays, that is a public record that I have to maintain. And if somebody asks for it, even though it's on my personal laptop, I have to produce what was on my personal laptop in response to a public records request. So if we loop back to those lovely social media posts, if you have a Facebook and you engage in things that could be considered a public record, this is getting to be a more gray area. So if I am maintaining a Echo board member Facebook page and I'm posting everything that we do on Echo, and then I post all of our things and all of my thoughts, even though that's a one-way communication, not violating the Sunshine Law, have I created a public record? Arguably, some people believe you have now. So if you are creating these things out in the world, there is some debate as to whether or not these things become public records, because it is part of your board member. Now, I see Miss Northy's face. It's a Facebook page that you've made that's specifically you as an Echo board member. So personal pages, that debate's even in the grayer area. So you're gonna have to use your mic. I can't hear you. The green button. It's okay. I know. It's a long week. I've been breaking technology all week. Go ahead.
By the way, I did complain about the mic system to Mike last month. Echo Forever Alliance has a Facebook page. We were the group that actually campaigned for the reauthorization. Council gave us permission to do that. They weren't going to do that. They allowed Echo Forever Alliance to do that. We post things on there. Especially, I'm posting as we're talking about about next week's meeting with the county council. That's a public record. We intended to be a public record, correct? I mean,
so I will have to defer to community information and find them. All of the county affiliated.
It's not county affiliated.
Well, so that's it's county affiliated official ones are in the clear area. When you start moving away from something that's a independent group or something that was created individually outside of the county, it becomes arguable whether it's not a public record. There's a big debate on this. You see what I'm saying?
Well, okay.
Yeah. So, like for instance, if make a better analogy, so if I'm a member of Boy Scouts of America, and you're doing your Eagle Scout project in an Echo whatever, and I'm posting on their website, it's separate. I mean, it's another nonprofit. They work closely with us. They probably get funding from us, but it's separate from us. But the Echo has a website. Echo
County has a website.
Correct.
This is
right.
not associated with that site.
Correct.
It's
And
individual. Okay.
And that's where I'm saying so it's actually an interesting topic to me, but it's a very gray area where that line is drawn as to where the public records are being created. and there hasn't been a case yet that has said, here's the line. So right now, we know like all of our county websites are public records. So the Echo for the county is definitely
Well, we
a
don't
public
care
record.
that it's a county website or that it's a public website. We encourage the public, but Facebook's, they have to join that.
Right,
site.
but we're just talking about public records.
Okay.
So right now we're just talking about public records. So for the purposes of the retention schedule for me creating a public record, it has to be a document that's created for me doing public
Oh, okay.
business. See, so yeah, so that's that's
So
why
if we use information that the county created as public record,
you're right. If you're
we're okay to-
reposting, you're reposting stuff
we're-
because
okay.
we have the public record on our website. So if you're reposting it out into the universe,
okay.
that's just like you've copied it. But like I said, I mean it's interesting to lawyers because it's not clear where the lines are being drawn. But the only thing you have to, going back to the Sunshine Law, you just have to be careful about multiple board members going on the same site and making comments. Sunshine Law is the issue. So public records, not really the issue on other sites. But if you do
Many sites it is.
if you do create a site and then use it as a board member, that can be an issue. So that's something that should be avoided, where you create a Pat Northey Echo board member site, and I'm doing all my Echo board member
Okay.
stuff on my own site. That's where you get clearly into trouble.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Patricia.
I am a real technology out of the, driving a Model T. What would be the mechanics of once you had such a site? How would you then? I'm thinking Facebook goes away or whatever. How does one do the mechanics of retaining the record?
So
I would then work with you.
You would, and that's the issue. So the county actually has software that archives our things. So the problem is if you don't have that software archiving it, that becomes the issue. So that's why it is something that should be avoided, creating something outside of our universe, because we actually have archiving software that captures everything and archives everything. Yes. All right, so again, locations are relevant, so make sure you give them to us. Drafts and other non-final materials. If you have a draft or a non-final material you don't share with anyone, you're okay. If you have a draft that's shared among the public, and this is again more to us. So if I draft something and I share it with another staff member and it goes back and forth, every draft's a public record. If I don't share it with anyone, it is not, because it's just mine. All right, generally, anything that deals with Echo business is a public record, so it's very broad. So then I already kind of went through that, so there you go. There are exceptions that are not public records, your passwords. Interesting, and an unvoted ballot's just one of those exceptions. That's one that they have specifically out there. So exemptions. We really deal with exemptions. There is a manual that is published, the Florida Sunshine Law Manual and Public Records Manual, that deals with the exemptions. It's about 200 pages worth. So it goes down from everything from the addresses of police officers to property appraisers. We have all the way social security numbers, financial information. There are a lot of exceptions that pertain to certain things. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of people think that their email addresses are exempt. There's only a few places where those are exempt. So typically, email addresses have not been considered something that is exempt from personal records except for a few people. Common other exemptions, again, safety plans, violations, competitive bids, public records requests. This one is a little bit important. So if a member of the public comes up to you and asks for a public record, to make a request to any representative, volunteer, whatever, is technically a valid public records request. We just need for you to know that you need to basically refer them to us or let us know what they requested. That's the fastest and easiest way to do it. You can also refer them to our website, but please, if someone verbally asks you for a public record, make sure you let us know. It is something where The other interesting thing is people. I can walk up to you and ask for a public record. You can't ask me my name, address, or anything. I am entitled to make an anonymous public records request, even in person. So you can't ask me why I want the record or who I am. All you can do is let me know that I can give you that record. Now, if a public record, this is more staff, so if someone makes a public records request to us, we can ask for additional information. So if they just vaguely come up to us and say, I would like everything Echo Board has ever done. Okay, that's a lot. So we can either do one of two things. We can give you an estimate of how much that would particularly cost, and you have to pay that estimate before we produce any of the records, or we can go back and say, do you need everything or everything we talked about last week? That's a big difference. So we can ask for clarifications, or we can request that they pay a deposit for how expensive it's going to be. As far as responding to public records requests, we must acknowledge promptly and respond in good faith. And essentially what that means is if you request for instance, a deed at the clerk's office, it takes them all 30 seconds to print it, charge you, and hand you the deed. That's reasonable. Again, if you ask me for everything that Echo Board has ever done before, it's reasonable for me to say that's going to take a little bit of time, because I'm going to have to go and look and see what I'm actually looking at as far as how many records we've retained, how long it's going to take, and get you a estimate of how long it's going to take. Regardless, there is so if somebody wants to sue me for public records request and recover their attorney's fees, they have to do this 5-day, this is where the 5-day waiting period comes in. It's for attorney's fees recovery. So if you make a request and then immediately sue me, you're not going to be entitled to recover your attorney's fees. You have to make a request, and then there's a 5 business day notice before filing suit. And attorneys that specialize in public records request lawsuits know that, and it's just their sort of rule. So a public record request, like I was saying, it's a handling thing. We do redact out information that can't be shared, social security numbers, those types of things. So that also goes into the cost of preparing a public record. I cannot redact things that I just feel like shouldn't be shared. So if I just like, oh, I don't want to share Ms. Santilli's phone number, I'm just going to redact that out. I can't do that. It has to be an actual thing in Chapter 119 is the public record law. It has to be an actual exemption or exception in 119. And typically now we have software that we do these responses in. We actually put the reason why there's a redaction. So if I redact because you're a law enforcement officer, that your address will be redacted, and then it will say 119 in the actual statutory section. All right. Okay. Public records requests. Some people get confused as to what they're for. Public records requests are for things that exist. You cannot send me a list of questions as a public records request. So you can't send me a list of what is your opinion on what the Echo Board did last week. That's not a public records request. You can send me a request that says, can I have all the documents that the Echo Board looked at last week? That is a public records request. So you can't ask us to actually respond to questions or provide you information that does not exist. The format produced, it can either be a copy or in the original, exempt and confidential we've gone through, federal and state. There's a difference between federal and state for exemptions that typically deals with more of your driver's license. I think there's a difference in what is acceptable to reveal statewide and federal, and social security numbers are federal and state. All right, so there's the fees and charges that we go through. I won't go through that, but we're not allowed to make a profit. We're only allowed to recover our cost. So it's how much it costs us to inspect and how much it costs us to supervise. Viewing records, you are entitled to view them instead of receiving copies, but we are required to supervise you while you look at the records so that you don't tamper with them. So you're not entitled to do it in private. Copying fees are statutorily established at 15 cents a page. And the service fees are also, it's the staff member with the lowest hourly rate is the staff we can charge. So we can't charge an attorney rate unless it requires an attorney to do it. We have to find the person who has the lowest hourly rate to produce the records. We can't just find the most expensive person and charge their rate. So we have our policy for what we do as far as service charge. Can require an advance deposit. Just like sunshine law, there are penalties for not complying with public records law, although public records is a first-degree misdemeanor. So for a first-degree misdemeanor, for a willful violation, you're looking at a $1,000 fine, up to a year in county jail, or up to a year on probation, or any combination thereof. Again, there's an unintentional penalty of $500, and the intentional is the first-degree misdemeanor. Failure to produce also can be result in suspension or removal, and again, attorney's fees and court costs can be applied. So as far as records, just for your general knowledge, we're not required to keep every record forever. The State Library and Archives has a schedule, which is also about a 200-page manual, on how long we have to keep records of certain things. So for instance, council minutes, I believe, have to be kept forever. Whereas a voicemail on my phone, as long as it doesn't have to do with an actual event, does not have to be kept at all. It's a transitory record. So the retention schedule can be anywhere from I don't have to keep it at all up to forever. And like I said, it's one of those things where it takes an attorney to read some of them, because the retention depends on whether or not action was taken, no action was taken, whether this action was taken, that action was taken. And I said it's like 200 pages. So, all right. So, key takeaways from this morning. Do not talk to, email, text, or correspond with your fellow board members about anything that can foreseeably come before the board unless it's in a noticed and open public meeting. Promptly respond in good faith to all requests for public records, and your staff members will determine whether they're exempt or how to respond. If you have any questions, please call us over in the legal department, and we will give you an opinion that is long and convoluted and doesn't come to a conclusion. Any questions?
I have,
Mr. Feaser, this is his second time. Come on.
I have a general question.
This week.
Person in the audience from the public comes up to speak. Can they address the council or a committee as anonymous?
So on public speaking, you are, we actually have a rule for our public speaking that you identify yourself and that you have to put down your actual address. There's also the cards. So it's a public record of who does speak before us, because you're not making a public records request. So that is something that we are required to keep a record of who did a public comment and what their address was. We don't require their actual address, just where they're from.
But we do require a name.
We actually require a card,
Okay,
so that
so
we
for
have
the-
a record of the communication with council or the board.
The point I'm driving at is this happened at a council meeting recently, where they actually fill the card out and the card said anonymous. And then addressed the council as anonymous.
Right.
No address.
Well, there you go. So it is, I mean, public participation is one of those things where everyone has a First Amendment right to speak. And, you know, if you deny them, we have a rule that we require your name and address. Conservatively, because of their First Amendment right, I would say fill out the card, give it to us. If you're going to put anonymous, you know, it is one of those things where I would rather not deny their First Amendment right as opposed to enforcing my own rules. You know, it's a balance. Anyone else? Everyone awake? No? All right. I'll turn it back over to the actual business.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, strategic plan update?
All right, Daniel Marsh, Echo Manager. I'm going to give you guys a strategic plan update. So in your binder, there is the engagement strategy for your reference. So some of these slides, I'm going to give you a 2 to 3 slide presentation of what you guys have in front of you. So the survey is complete. It was finished as of March 28th. We got 1,585 respondents to the survey that went out. These were distributed via email, flyers, websites. Jill and I drove across the county and dropped them off at least 150 Echo sites. So we did get about double from what we did for our last survey. And this survey is just to collect quantitative and qualitative data, which I'm going to show you some of the data now, which only represents the demographic data. The other data is still being compiled by the consultant company. So about 96% of the people that filled out the survey were Volusia County residents. There was about 60% of the survey was from the east side of the county and about 40% from the west side of the county. About 50% of the survey compiled that most people have been here for about 20 years. And then the age range, about 75% of the survey was between the ages of 42 to 76 years old. Here's some income. About 50% of the survey was from 60,000 to 150,000. We had about 15% identify as having a disability, and then there was about 50% to have children that don't live at home, and the other 50% do have children. So here's some just stats data that you guys can look at from our first response back from TPMA. So now I'm going to go into the selection process. Yes, ma'am.
Was that number of the 1585 considered statistically valid? What was the goal for a response to the survey?
So our goal as staff was to get at least double of what we got last time. So the last survey, we had 829 responses, so we almost doubled from what we got this time.
But given the population of Volusia County, was there within the consultant, was there a goal for how many responses you needed to have in order to have a valid measure for the county?
We were told between 1,500 and 2,000 would have been a good response level pool.
Thank you.
All right, so on to the selection process. Staff identified about 80 plus stakeholders through the process, looking at diverse perspectives and knowledge of the program, previous engagement, and other involvement with other relevant programs, different advisory boards, Volusia Forever, the Historic and Cultural Council. We have municipality directors, other division directors, obviously some grant writers and citizens that are in the stakeholder process. So this is a 3-tier approach. So tier 3 started with the survey to ensure wide representation. This is our broadest level for the tiered approach. And then we go into interviews and surveys, which that will start next Monday. That will be detailed insights, specific knowledge areas, and in-depth overview. Either one-on-one or groups will be scheduled. And then tier 1 is the design sprint, the interview in the survey. This is a collaborative discussion with TPMA where they look at the results of the survey in the interviews to gather that knowledge. To bring a multi-layered approach to a robust finding to inform the process. So next steps here would be the strategic plan and implementation guide. They'll still submit a final report and presentation, and they plan to have that to us by the end of August. Any questions so far?
I will, if I may, I'll just for the committee, I think that's the end. We talked about the end of May previously. So as you know, that this is an extension, But the reason is we've asked to include more stakeholders than what was originally in our scope. So, and they've agreed to do that. I think it's important that we have broad-based input into the program. As you can see, I think we've gotten a little criticism about engagement, but the information in your packet shows you how robust and how strategic and thoughtful we were in engaging broad bases of opinions in our community and sectors and industries. So I think we'll have a better report because of that. Given that approach, we are going to have to extend the timeline a bit, and TPMA is willing to do that with us to make sure that we have the best report.
Will we have I see you have the final report in August.
Yes.
Would there be an opportunity to see the draft report before you get to final form?
Yeah, they're going to submit a draft report to us, so we'll align with their timeline, and you'll get that information either at the next advisory meeting, or we'll send it out to you via email so you have it.
Thank you.
I have a question. Have we reached out or having any input from sports community? People have a demand for ball fields and active recreation. Are we addressing any of those stakeholders?
So we are engaged with all the city municipality division directors in Parks and Rec.
Okay, I didn't know, because there's a lot of other things like, travel balls and stuff that are outside the things of municipalities. It's private organizations, but they're for the public. And I know it could get into a gray area, but there seems to be a need out there that's, not always being addressed. And sometimes it's good to hear from the public on beyond what the municipalities are inputting.
I will say in the last survey and this survey, I think that they have made their voices heard in what the needs are in terms, especially on the west side of the county. Those organizations were sent the survey as a general public, and they distribute them to their members, and that's how we will capture
And you did
their
get a
voice.
good response back from them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Question. First of all, am I missing something? You said something about a packet. Is there a packet of what you're covering right now in the notebook?
In the binder on the left side of your notebook should be the engagement strategy.
Is that one? Okay, that's it right there. Okay. So again, what exactly, back to your slide on stakeholders, what exactly constitutes a stakeholder?
So what you're looking at, these are the stakeholders that are in the strategic plan here. So staff identified people that have had knowledge of the ECHO program previously, former grant writers, grantees that have been a part of the program for 20 plus years. And then we brought in Parks and Rec, other division directors, other people that know other similar grant programs as well. And then we've also brought in some general citizens just to kind of give us that diverse and balanced background.
Okay.
So it's really anyone who has a vested interest in the program and knows about it. So we can start, typically the survey, they're self-selected typically because they say ECHO and they know what ECHO is. So, but those are typically our lower knowledge folks, general public. So we gauge their interest in and I will tell you again, we have continued to see, this is the third time we've done a survey. So I think we've done it in around 2011, 23, and then this is another one. This is, we've got the most response on this one, but again, water access and trails are the two most in-demand priorities of our community. Same, it was bared out again in this survey. So you have some gathering information from low knowledge voters, low knowledge individuals, and then the engagement through the interviews is really more people who understand ECHO, understand the process, can provide that deep insight that's needed to our consultants. And then the design sprint is basically when they get in a room, the consultant with everyone, which I think you guys will be involved in this process. I really like it. The design sprint essentially is saying, here's the data from the survey, here's the data from the interviews. If we could hit the reset button on ECHO, what would it look like in the future?
Okay. All right. So with the implementation process of the strategic plan, as well as the development of the new application portal that we're working on with Salesforce, and to align with some of the feedback and challenges that we have received from our grantees and grant writers about the program, we are proposing to do a grant cycle change. So our cycle is usually September to March. So we are proposing to actually start the mandatory workshop in December, and then their applications would be due in January, and then they would turn around, their final applications would be due in February, and then we would go into the tour and grant review panel in March, and then the projects would then go to council around the end of April, early May. So by the time they get to the finish line, we'd be finishing up right around June. So it's still the same 6-month process. We just kind of moved it up almost 6 to 8 weeks. We feel as if this would be a better opportunity, for applicants. They won't struggle with the applications during the holiday period. They've complained about hardship in the past. This will align with, the budgets so they can prepare for match a lot sooner. So it'll just give them a better chance to get quality applications in. So we made this decision because we've looked at other best practices around the country. So the National Grants Management Association, which I'm a member of, they say that it's best to do the grants between January to April timeframe, as well as most of your conservation and recreation grants. They also, say that that's the best time for applications to be submitted. This will alleviate any of the holiday periods, holiday stress. This is a benchmark that's across the nation for other grant programs, and this will give us quality applications.
I just want to thank you for that.
Another benefit is it gives us time to go through the complete results of the survey and the interviews and the design sprint and have that ready for the next cycle. So we didn't want to rush right from the end of the strategic plan right into the next cycles. We want to make sure we do it right and get everything in place before we open that cycle up.
So I'm seeing that we're going to have the grant application deadline is January 22nd. And I just want to make sure that that's consistent with what you were just saying.
Yes, so I haven't got to the calendar yet. It is in your binder. But January 22nd would be the technical app. That's when it would be due. And then the final application will be due February 26th.
So they would have a preliminary workshop on December 4th and have the final application due January 22nd. And I'm just thinking about the holidays and stuff. I'm fine. It's okay with, I just wanted to, because you were saying up there, I think it said that the application date was recommended to be more in April. So
Finishing the process.
Okay.
Finishing
all right.
the process in April.
Thank you.
All right, so some other benefits: it gives them more time to prep. It allows more equal opportunity to allow them to get to the finish line, and we still will work with the applicants. We know that there's going to be a lot of changes, or there could be a lot of changes from the strategic plan. We have a new application portal that we'll be having to test before they start submitting, online versus turning in a paper application. So we wanted to make sure we gave them enough time to get these apps in. So we know, there is a lot of resistance to change, but we're looking to strengthen the program to bring quality projects across. We want to be good stewards of the program and then continuously improve the ECHO program for the next 15 years and to make sure that when 2040 comes along, we get it reauthorized for another 20 years.
I really think that, thank Daniel and the team. doing the portal and the strategic plan simultaneously as part of that is really, our deputy county manager, I took her to a Salesforce kind of conference where we're trying to modernize our process. Our ECHO process is firmly rooted in the 90s, the process and the way that we manage it. It's really a modernization of ECHO. And so we thank you for your support. The fight for the strategic plan was worth it. And I think you will see the fruits that it will bear over the next year and be proud of the work that the team and we've done together.
So Ashlyn's gonna pull up the tentative calendar, just so you guys can see it. I know you have it in front of you, but the tour and grant review panel would be in March. Normally we do that, and the tour's usually in January, and then we score in mid-February. So we're still gonna bring these applications to council by April, May. They'll get an NTP either in June or July. So. All right. Go back, Ashley. All right, next up is the direct county expenditure plan. So I'm going to provide you the new projects and requests that are being input into the 2026-2029 budget. So in 26, we have the Carter Quail Ranch Recreation and Management Plan, which was approved last time. You guys approved the D&E of the plan for $150,000. So that was approved in 25. So this will be the construction part in 26 for $750,000. We're also adding in the Wiregrass, which would be $100,000 for the design and engineering. Then we have Plantation Oaks to James Ormond Tomb.
So let me provide some context here for the committee, Daniel. So Carter Quail Ranch, this is the 1,300-acre piece. It's an extension of Deep Creek Preserve. It connects at the corners, and it's it has about 2 miles of frontage along 415. So this will be it's basically an addition to the 8,000-acre Deep Creek Preserve. As Daniel said at the last meeting, you approved some design and engineering, the development of a recreation plan. We think that those will be back to us, and we'll be able to start implementing the preserve optimization plan for those amenities. Like Pat, I know this has been, we've talked about having a driving trail, much like the district does. There are some folks that are not able-bodied, but we should give them an opportunity to explore our preserves. This is where we're looking at some of that as a possibility, right off 415, because it has good access. Has the largest lakes, I think, on any of our properties, the 2 lakes. I'm looking at Nick to make sure that I'm sharing that.
It's got 3 internal water bodies on it that could provide some good public access to water.
I would think if we're talking about a driving trail, which I'm happy to hear that we have identified a site for that, that's really important. We would be doing a surface that was compatible with the environment, correct?
That is correct.
Like when I go down to Merritt Island and drive down Merritt Island, they're hard packed.
So we actually are at the forefront. I will give Nick and Tim Bailey a shout out.
Doing what Tim's going to do?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have it's kind of a hex paver. It's a permeable paver kind of thing that we're using. It's actually being reviewed by the state. We did a kind of a research is it 1,400 feet that we did, or how long was it?
200 feet.
200 feet. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, to send out by email that particular video. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll
actually.
send. So
we see it. Okay, I couldn't remember.
So yeah, the state's actually really looking at that as a potential in the wildlife corridor. So we are postured in a good place because we brought it up. And Tim Bailey, I said, when you go to these meetings, you always have an ask. So I think our $40 million ask to get from the south end of the county to the north end of the county is being taken more serious now, which is pretty cool. Wiregrass Prairie Preserve. So this is a 1,400-acre preserve that the county owns just southeast of Lake Ashby. And so we're going to do some, as you know, our goal is to move through the preserves, develop uniform signage, do some placemaking, make them themes of each preserve. There's a theme of water, there's a theme of hunting, there's different themes where people remember stories. And so this is part of that process. Again, do some design and engineering. We'll come back in the next year. Pat, just like you like this approach. We're doing it, so why can't our applicants do it? I think that let that be borne out and with the consultants. And then Plantation Oaks to James Orman Tomb. The Plantation Oaks, this committee voted on buying Plantation Oaks up in Ormond. This is connecting it to our Ormond Tomb Park, which is about, Nick, how far would you say? Half a mile up the road, a mile?
It's at least a mile between the two.
So we're trying to connect Plantation Oaks, the isolated 34 acres. There's an additional 20 acres that the developer north of there has given us. But from that point all the way up to James Tomb, it gets real close to the road. We've had some early talks with the state park system to actually do come across and walk up to the Bulow Creek and the Oak, Plantation Oak, I believe. And then cross again at James Orman Tomb. But we really want to make some connections there for people, and coming across the loop there will save us money from having to put a bridge over a large canal as well. So those are kind of the context for these asks. Daniel.
All right, the other three projects are design and engineering of the BMX park at Robert Strickland Park in Daytona. And then we have the Deltona Amphitheater. The design and engineering was approved previously. And the construction is $2 million for that project.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I was out there just the other day, where we're putting the walkway. It's now there's tape around it, but it's been there for a while. When do we have a construction date line on this?
Are you talking about the ADA boardwalk already?
Yeah, the boardwalk.
Okay. That
Nick should have an update.
I've got a little bit of that, Daniel. So we have a pre-bid contractors meeting coming up in April, and another meeting upping a bid date in June. That's the status on that. Everything is still on schedule, but the engineering has not given us a final date on that, but it's looking like sometime in 26 should be the end date.
Okay. People are asking because it's got not rope but tape around it, and they're asking what's going on with it. So is there some way we could put something out at Lyonia saying what the improvements are going to be?
Certainly, we can have some signage out there.
So they could,
Yeah, I don't know if that's related to this project, but we will because they haven't even done the pre-bid meeting. But I'll get Lucinda to get us to the bottom of it and give an update.
That's really good information, because I was told that where the ribbons are, the plastic ribbon is where and I remember looking at that site thinking that's really going to be a hard site to, so maybe I've got the site wrong.
Yeah,
I
we'll
think
double
what
check.
you've seen is the survey area where they've done the preliminary Gopher Tortoise surveys and marked any burrows. So they're in that
This is
stage
right
in
by
the
the
permitting.
amphitheater, right? As the amphitheater goes down?
Yes,
Okay.
Yep. that should be the location.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was approved of the July 16th update for DCE, that specific project. All right, and then we also have improvements to the fairgrounds, Phase 3, which will be an additional $1 million on top of the 2.5 that's already been approved in the plan.
So I think that we heard you loud and clear when Kaylin came. We're trying to do a replica of the entrance of the 1914 fair that was over here by Sunrail. So we're working on that at the entrances for part of Phase 2, which is, we got one little, it will be Phase 2 rather than Phase 3. Apologize for that. If you've been by the fairgrounds lately, you've seen a Phase 1 in action. The midway is completely torn up. P&S Paving is doing a good job, but improving the drainage there. It will, there's French drains, all kinds of new technology we're using to get the water off that property as quick as possible. we're doing permeable pavers as examples of different areas, doing LED lighting, interestingly, and I said that this will be part of the educational process for using this green infrastructure. The electrical engineer did the math for us because we wanted to do solar lighting, and he said your investment for solar versus what you'll pay for LED over the long term, you're better off with LED. So I said, well, we need to put that on the signage, as to why. And when we talk about return on investment, so we're trying to use a lot of these green infrastructure concepts to be able to educate people when they go to the fair.
Are we going to be able to get certified green
I
there
don't
at
think
some level?
I don't think so, but we'll look. Absolutely.
I know there's several levels.
Yes. So they're working on that phase 1 where we'll also provide access to the bathrooms in the Hester and Dougherty building from the outside. So if you are outside, you'll have double doors to be able to walk right into the restrooms there. And doing some cutouts, in the Hester Dougherty to provide more light. The metal roll-up doors will be now the kind of fiberglass you can see through, trying to make it, I think our consultant said you have a warehouse in the middle of a field. We're trying to make it a nicer warehouse in the middle of the field. So
Are they still doing the farm, not the Wednesday?
yes, very popular. Our farmers
that has not been impacted.
not
The
impacted
farmers
at all.
Okay.
They typically will move to the field during certain times of the year, and that's what they're doing this year to help us get the work done. And as soon as PNS is done, we'll have them back. For phase 2, what we'd like to do is what's being proposed and what we've written a grant for to FDAX for is to, now that we've made the Hester Dougherty look a little nicer, is to extend. So when you walk up to the Hester Dougherty now, all you see are the air conditioners. We're going to move the air conditioners to the other side of the building and do some more permeable pavers and have some wind sails to provide shade on the outside of the building, so it's almost like a patio. The consultant that we had from UF said, there's 1% of shade on this property. So we're going to provide some shade to people. I think it's much needed. And then in the circle, so kind of the roundabout when you walk in, we're working with FPL to do a solar pavilion. So it will be a solar powered pavilion, stage area where we could have performances. And what am I missing, gents? The team says that I'm crazy, but I want a really large American flag that you can see from the interstate to be put right there. I think it's a placemaking. But if you go to Polk County or Lakeland, there's an RV dealer that has one. That's exactly what I want.
Camping World. There's lawsuits all over the country with those flags.
So we'll see. Am I missing anything else, gents? I think that, and then the replica entrance from 1914. We want to make it in a way that people can take pictures with it, almost like selfie. So how we're going to make that happen remains to be seen, but that's the goal.
Can I go back to the first slide where we had? Okay, I'm just going to pitch this because I've been trying to pitch this for years. Can we put bat boxes out, big bat boxes out there that would, we have all this public land along the river and lake, and on the west side there is no, we don't have, we don't pay for mosquito control. There is no mosquito control on the west side, so bats are great. I know there's some question about that, but I think generally bats eat mosquitoes. And the one at UF, if anybody's seen the one at UF, it's amazing. It's got like almost 100,000 bats that fly out at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They fly over the lake that's out there. People come from all over to see it. It's exciting. I know that.
Well, they're moving them out of the Daytona Stadium. Maybe they can bring them down to the fairgrounds.
They're doing wrong.
So I will say we have created a replica of the UF model at the Reed Hughes Environmental Learning Center that we're doing at Doane.
Happy about that,
So
could we?
yes, I think that rather than the fairgrounds, I would much rather have people attracted to Lyonia. Why don't we do one there?
Lyonia, I'm talking about Carter Quail Ranch, Wireless, Wiregrass Prairie Preserve, those places. I'm not talking about the
Not Leonia?
I'll jump in on.
Be perfect. There's already Bat Box Lane would be perfect.
I'll jump in, Pat. Just you'll be happy to know that the staff is already discussing those options as these new properties come in. Bat houses are very popular.
Yes.
We have volunteer groups that come out just to watch us put one up, even the smaller ones. We have one at our Hickory Bluff campground, so you can actually go to a
Okay.
campsite and see the
Already
bats come
working
out of
on it.
that.
I'm thrilled. Okay.
As we develop the plans for these new properties, bat houses are absolutely something we look at
Okay.
if they're good for the site. We do reach out to.
Don't do it like Daytona did because they really screwed it up.
Well, we'll go to the professionals on this and make sure
Yeah.
we have the right size houses to support the population in the area. It does you no good to put a bat house in the scrub. They need to be near water.
Yeah, right.
So we look at all aspects of that to see if it's
Okay.
appropriate for the site.
Thank you.
Just for a point of levity, one of our elementary schools, we ended up having to get the bats out of the attic, and so we put up a bat house. And then because of its proximity to all of the students, I had to have somebody in charge of flushing the rock underneath the bat house once a week. So, like I said, I said, oh my gosh. So it's always fun. There's always some new wrinkle. So.
We always make it harder than we need to.
All right, moving into the 27 projects.
So this funding is for properties we have coming in through Volusia Forever. So we don't have a name on the project yet. We are still in negotiation on many of these properties, but we want to make sure we have funding in the budget. So the last thing we want to do is take a property in and not be able to put anything out there for 3 years because we didn't budget for it. So this is going ahead and getting it in the budget now. So as the properties come in, we can start year one with the management plans and the amenities, getting them out there as quickly as possible.
And there's, we face criticism as a staff of buying things and locking it up. This will allow us, if we know that a deal is going through, if we've got a signed contract from a owner, we'll start this process because we have the budget. When we have that negotiation, if it's in this fiscal year, if we get it sooner, we may come back to you and say we'd like to move it up. But our goal would to be simultaneously developing that management plan and recreation plan. So when the deal is done, we can move as quickly as possible to get our citizens on that property. We're moving to that model, yes.
Yep, and then this is the construction for 28 for those projects. And then in 2029, we have the Sunsplash Park ADA playground and safety surface along with the shade structure. 250 will be from the Echo DCE, and then 250 will be out of the beach management fund. Coastal will have this playground. Any other questions about DCE? Yes, ma'am.
I know it's been discussed, and I wanted to know of what we looked at, the proposed, I don't want to use the right word, motocross, where is that in this?
So it was previously approved by, it was previously reviewed by this council, and I tried to make that very clear in the agenda item that you did not approve, and I realize that you're getting, public pushback for that. But the role of the advisory committee is to review the direct county expenditure. I believe you guys did that at a previous meeting last year, and then the council approved that direct county expenditure plan. So right now it's been approved and it's available for acquisition or improvements to land for a facility.
So when we looked at that couple of prior slides, the 2026, 2027, that was expenditures to improve one of those parcels. I'm just making sure I understood.
No, it was only the 3.5 has already been approved, and that these are additions to the plan.
right.
So we didn't bring the full plan that you've already approved. Remember, the DCE plan is a 5-year rolling plan, so it's more of a strategic look of, what's the snapshot of the future look like, and how can Echo deliver projects. And we did this really as a stabilization of our reserves because they continued to grow. I think in the 5-year forecast, it had us putting $40 million in reserves, and that's, we want to deliver projects for our people. And the DCE was the one way that we stabilized, and we've actually spent down reserves to a little under 10 million at this point.
So as you go through the D&E on these projects, we'll be informed
Yes, ma'am.
or advised
We-
of that progress.
We will bring them back just like we do. They are required to, the 2 pathways for funding through ECHO is the grants program and direct county expenditure. We require the same reporting. So when we give quarterly updates on the grant projects, you will also get quarterly updates on the direct county expenditure projects.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, moving on to item 4 in new business. We wanted to bring to your attention this item that goes to County Council on Tuesday. The Museum of Art DeLand has reached out and asked to request to rescind their 4 grants that they have with ECHO right now and then reimburse us back based on the restrictive covenant that is in place for these 4 grants. So the chart here, you're seeing grants 814 and grants 1511 are full payback because they're in the first half of the restrictive covenant. The other 2 grants, we have a formula that's in the restricted covenant to calculate the payback because they are in the second half of the restricted covenant. So the 4 grants totaled about $711. They will be paying back about $603,000. And this goes to council Tuesday for approval.
And it was presented at the last meeting. There is no process in our guidebook that has recensions coming back to this committee or coming to this committee. I've asked Daniel to memorialize that when we do updates to the guidebook this year as to, here are, if you want to rescind grants and repay, here are the things that we need. We need some board minutes where it was said that you were going to do that. We need, there's about four things that we're going to put in, and it will come back to the committee first before it will go to council, because I think the council would like a recommendation from this committee on those. One thing I think we need to keep in mind is we are a co-investor in a capital project with ECHO. These individuals, yes, they're not paying back the full amount, but they're the operational partner. The Museum of Art's operational budget last year was $1 million. So they have committed to operate this facility for so many years. So to say they don't have any skin in the game and we're not getting our full investment back, the taxpayers have enjoyed services for 20 years, nearly 20 years, and the museum has continued to fund those operations. So I think the services that they provide should be taken into account as well. We're going to do our best to help our critics and council members understand that. We're getting into an area where, in my talks with cultural facilities and cultural folks, where they don't want to come to ECHO, but we're working hard to help the broad-based community understand the value of culture and ECHO and how we can co-invest in these projects. That's what TPMA is going to help us do too. One of the things we asked them is in these underserved categories in culture and historical, how do we beef up the applications? How do we help people be more successful?
And even with them selling the building, they are consolidating. So they are moving the exhibits, from 600 North Woodland to 100 Woodland here in downtown. So that all that is going to go to 100. So they'll bring everything there, all their office space, all the exhibits, and then they do have plans in the future to expand that museum there. All right, so jumping to staff comments here, wanted to bring a little light to the other two implementations that we're doing. So we are working with the marketing to develop the microsite. So we actually have a meeting with them at 3 o'clock today to look at the final revision of the microsite. So we did land on echoforever.org. Will be the landing page. So that will show synergy between the two programs. So we hope to have that in the next month or so, final to be released. Salesforce and Cloud Creations, we work with weekly on developing the application portal. We will start testing the application portal next week. So Jill, myself, Nick will be in there trying to bust it, see if it works. So we'll be actually submitting applications, doing some mock scenarios with reimbursements just to see if everything is to our liking with that.
So this web page are we going to have a user group look at this before we release it? Because I find not just us, but in many web pages, they're not easy to use. And if they had a user group that had looked at it and pointing out I used to be an old IT person, so we used to call them user groups. Do we do anything like that?
Yeah. So we have a community information department is along with us for the ride for the development.
Like anybody from the public that we trust that comes in and says, drives it?
So I think we'll ask some of our grant writers, like when we tried to do it the first time with SurveyMonkey, we had Teresa Brooks, who's probably written 90 of the 300 grants that we have.
Yeah.
She was our pilot and helped us realize we were going down the wrong road. So
Teresa, I'm happy.
Yeah, we'll probably ask her and maybe another Loretta from Ormond to do a test of it. We'll give them their usernames and have them walk through it.
Thank you.
But there will be some user interface before we put it out to the public.
Thank you.
All right. Also, I sent you guys via email, but Veterans Memorial Plaza is having a ribbon cutting April 25th at 9 a.m. So if you guys can make that, it'd be good to see you there. Just to give you an update on some projects from the 2024 cycle, not the spring cycle, but the first cycle we had earlier in the year. Ormond Beach has finished both of theirs projects. The city of Edgewater has broke ground on the pickleball courts. Stetson just got their permit yesterday from DEP, so they're going to be moving forward with the shoreline restoration project. We were at the New Smyrna Skate Park expansion, and Deltona YMCA is pretty much almost done with their turf fields as well. So besides City of Port Orange, which they just got the bid for the playground, all those projects are almost wrapping up. All right, and that's all I have for you today.
First off, I'd like to thank staff. You've been working hard.
Microphone.
Oh, it's on. I'd like to thank staff. You've been working hard and diligently working on making this a better program. Thank you.
Me? Okay. I want to revisit the issue that I came up with originally, and that was, what is the board sentiment or staff sentiment on a member going into a community group and making a presentation? As soon as it was noticed that I was on the ECHO board, I was contacted by 2 different people who asked me to come to their town or their community and speak on what ECHO is. So is that something the sentiment of the board to do that, to those kind of things? Staff's feelings on that, or should I refer them elsewhere? Or how
I think so. I think the best practice, Doug, is to take us with you.
Yeah.
So you can share publicly available information. So if we have a cycle coming, you can hand out our flyer and share information. But really, we have the deep knowledge. I think if we tag team, we've done that before. I've done it with Pat and others on this board. Like if you get invited to Rotary, I love to do the Rotary tour. We could tag team it.
You did a good job on that one.
Yeah, and food. Food's always good if there's if that's involved. That's right. That's right. But we would prefer in the ordinance or in the enabling resolution that formed that basically enabled the committee is it says, publicizing the program as a staff role. So, but if we did it together, you could talk about, your kind of philosophy as a board member, and we could, we like to do the market, these, what are they called? The cards that we do, the marketing.
The rack cards.
Infographic cards. So when we go into a community, like if we were to go to Ormond with you, we have a rack card that's kind of on nice paper that will say, this is how much ECHO's invested in this community. These are all the projects that we've done. So we try to make you look good and us good. But the goal would be to tag team it with us.
Okay, good answer. I'll be in touch with you on that then. Well, thank you very much for your hospitality today and welcoming me, and I'm looking forward to be a part of what I consider to be a very important function of the county. When the staff gave me my notebook, my new member notebook, just so you know how important I think this is, I went front to back in this. So I think it's very important to be sure that I'm aware of what's going on. So thank you.
Jay?
Yeah, I have a comment. I just want to put this into the record, and I appreciate staff's sensitivity to the direct county expenditures and this board's committee's sensitivity to that as well. But I need to put this into the record. On behalf of the Echo Forever Alliance, we are opposed to the agenda item for building a motocross facility in the middle of the wildlife corridor. It is too intense a use, and that comes out of the Echo Forever Alliance, which we were the ones who actually did the campaign to reauthorize. We don't discount that part of that authorization included DCI. I'm actually very happy. We've done a good job with that. We're just opposed to where the location has been selected, and it's not an Echo issue, but I need to put that into the record because Echo money is being used to do that. I think that's all I'll say. Thank you.
No comments.
Yes, I have a question. Talking about partnerships, and was listening a little bit about the water, that you said, I think earlier, that some of the preliminary data shows that some of the people's interest are water access. My question is, do we ever do any partnerships through ECHO with other government organizations, like the state? And I guess the idea that the use is out there, like at DeLeon Springs State Park. They own the old Birch Park, and which Birch Park now is woods, and yet would make a great access thing, or a great county park or state park or whatever. Some deal now could be utilized to gain more water access, especially when DeLeon Springs is usually shut down in the summer from use. And that's one specific. There's another couple pieces of property along the, well, that's another state. It's not really a state partnership. But anyway, I used the DeLeon Springs model as a possibility. Is that something we've ever looked at?
So right now, the state would not be eligible to apply for ECHO grants, and the reason why is they will not. I don't want to say comply, but they will not sign the restrictive covenants typically. So they don't want to be bound by our requirements. That's been the case in the past. Nick's grabbing his microphone, so I'll let him speak on it as well.
But I'll say for like a smaller municipality with some water access, that's something that could be eligible for kayak launches or something like that. That's something we could certainly partner on.
We need to find boat launches. We don't have, this is a growing population, and we don't have enough places for boats to launch comfortably where they aren't killing each other over access to the water. So that would be something I think water access we need to really look at is, are there opportunities out there that we can increase the boat launch facilities?
So I'll share two with you that we've bought with Forever and we'll probably amenitize with ECHO. We are in the process of closing a deal in Lake George that will provide another boat launch. There's actually a primitive boat launch. Is that what we would call it?
Yeah, very primitive boat. Yes.
It has some concrete there. But we'll improve that as an access point. We've bought the Sternstein property in Oak Hill.
We did.
And that's a 70-acre property, which will be an awesome
That's a great
place to watch
location.
launches
Yeah.
from the Cape. So I believe that there's a new county administrator coming on this month, or not county, city administrator. Sorry, George. Please don't leave. A new city administrator in Oak Hill that will be coming on board this month. So we look forward to meeting with them to see how ECHO can help amenitize that 70 acres that we bought jointly with them in the Water Management District. So as we look at the acquisitions through Forever, it's top of mind that what our citizens want. The Project One there that was just described will provide 2 miles of frontage on Lake Harney. So that's another piece that's important to us, and the state has given us the thumbs up that they're going to advance to the appraisal stage on. So,
Yeah, and Pat, I just want to say that's always top of mind for these Forever properties when they come in with water access. That's one of the first things we look at is the ability to
Well,
do that.
we have a lot of fishermen in this county, and I've had some complaints about not being able to get the boat in the water without fist fights at the docks.
Oh, and if I could follow up on another question, with our beach management and access to that, they had to be charged for it. And now if you're a citizen, it's free and you just register your plates. Have we ever thought about on some of our boat ramps is putting where you had to have permitted, that if you're in county, it's free, but if you're out of county, you're paying a fee? Because a lot of times now, a lot of our boat ramps are overrun by people from Orange and Seminole and other counties around, as our beaches are. And our Volusia taxpayers are paying for all this. So I think a lot of our county ramps, some of my boating friends probably shoot me for that, but I'll say, well, if you live in Volusia, you're good. So something I would encourage to think about or at least look into. That's all I have.